Welcome to Behind the Headlines. Today we're talking about what's happening in the local arts world this fall. I'm joined by arts writer and researcher Sheryl Nonnenberg, and I'm also joined by John Graves, the executive director of the Pacific Art League. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
Thanks for inviting.
There's a lot going on this fall. So Sheryl, I'm just going to start with you. Tell me what's on your gotta see, gotta do list.
Sure, happy to do that. After sort of a quiet summer, a lot of times the museums and galleries kind of take a little break during the summer months, or at least have shows that might be considered a bit more low-key. Everyone's back in full force, it seems, in the fall here. And I'll start with the Cantor Center over at Stanford, because their big exhibition for the fall is the Contact Warhol Photography Without End show. And this will consist of 3,600, well actually it's going to be honed down to a much smaller group, but they purchased 3,600 contact sheets from the Warhol Foundation back in Pittsburgh. And they hired an archivist to go through these things for the past 2.5 years, and she's managed to identify all the people on these contact sheets. And if you know anything about Andy Warhol, you know that he was a prolific photograph taker, photographer, whatever, and just chronicled his whole life in photographs. So they're going to be, the exhibition will show, I think it's around 1,700 of these. Some of them will be blown up, some actually in the contact sheet format. Yes. And we'll have a chance to kind of see just how prescient he was, because, you know, what we do now in terms of using our phones to capture everything we do and eat and everywhere we go, he was doing that back in the 70s and 80s. So I happen to think he's a genius, and I think it's going to be a very interesting exhibition.
Have you gotten a sneak peek at anything that's going to
No, they're being very, very closed about that.
When does that start? Is it?
It's at the end of September. September 28th is the opening. Okay. So that's over at Stanford.
And these are things that have never been on display before, correct?
Correct, because a lot of what he did was just kept in boxes for years and years and years. Now, of course, we're going to recognize a lot of the subjects of these photographs, because it'll be people like Liza Minnelli and you know, all the glitterati of the day. So it's not like it's just strangers. However, he did capture just anybody he met on the street too.
Are they owned by the estate, or?
They were part of the Warhol Foundation, and then for some reason they were put up to bid, and Stanford won them. And I'm sure it was a very intense bidding contest. So, and they will be part of the permanent collection now at Stanford and available for scholars, which is also an interesting thing to note. And then a little closer in town here in Palo Alto, Pace Gallery, which is always wonderful for bringing fabulous exhibitions to us ever since they opened 2 or 3 years ago, will be hosting an Agnes Martin exhibition. And I like the juxtaposition of this, because it will be Agnes Martin's beautiful striped paintings next to Navajo blankets from the 19th century. And you'll get a chance to kind of see the influence there. And also, as the director noted, they're both so meditative in their quiet, I don't know, colors and shapes and forms, and we'll just be able to see how she picked up on what the Native Americans were doing and incorporated that into her work. So that is in Palo Alto, and that opens September 27th. Then back on campus, salon style at the Anderson Collection. You know, the Andersons gifted all those fabulous works of art that formed the basis of the museum there. But since then, they've also donated, or rather have loaned, various artworks for their temporary space. And this past few months, we've seen works on paper from the collection, and that was part 1. Now they're going to do part 2. And these are more contemporary works with people like Elizabeth Murray and Ed Ruscha. And that will be an interesting show. Small, but very interesting. A little further afield, and I did want to mention this because it's probably going to be the biggest exhibition in the South Bay, is Bruce Monroe, who happens to be an Englishman like yourself. And he works in light. And evidently, this is at Villa Montalvo in Saratoga, and they have opened the entire Villa Montalvo estate to this artist. He'll be doing installations outside on the lawn, inside, and they're site-specific, and they're supposed to be absolutely fabulous. He has an international following, and it's just something so totally different than what we see here, because we will be able to actually walk around through these installations. And Villa Montavo will obviously have to be open in the evening because it's a light show.
Yeah.
So those are just a few of the things that I find will be interesting coming up.
Is there anything under the radar that
Under the radar? No, but because it's in Palo Alto, let's also talk about the Palo Alto Arts Center, because they do such great things over there. That one is going to open in just a week or two, and that's the Care and Feeding the Art of Parenthood at Palo Alto Arts Center, which just in itself is a real interesting concept to invite artists who have families and kind of incorporate both showing their art and also revealing a little bit about how they work and the difficulties and challenges of being a working artist and being a parent. As we all know, it's hard enough to be one or the other. And so these folks have combined both. So that show should be interesting too.
Okay. And John, why don't you tell us what you have coming up, because you have a big exhibition coming up.
We do, and it's sort of riffing on the photography topic, really, because we're increasingly seeing at Pacific Art League a demand for classes in photography. So we've brought in 3 very good new instructors to teach photography, right from beginning through to advanced manipulation skills. So photography is something that we want to really feature a lot. And as a result of that, talking to one of our instructors, Andy Wext, who's just won an Emmy for his cinematography. He spends a lot of time in Africa. I personally have an interest in wildlife preservation, and we talked about the idea of featuring a really high-end photography show of wildlife from Africa. Given there's such a problem at the moment with the poaching, with habitat loss, snaring, we are seeing unprecedented destruction of elephant, rhino, and lion populations. So this is really our goal, to use the power of art to address this issue. And I think even though people in Palo Alto travel, I still feel that Silicon Valley generally is not aware as they should be about the significance of this problem. And we were losing 30,000 elephants a year, 1,000 rhinos a year. There are only 30,000 rhinos still in the wild, around 500,000 elephants. So potentially at this rate, we could lose those populations within a very short period of time. So our goal is, through really fabulous fine art photography, to draw attention to this issue, but also to see whether Silicon Valley can get behind it, not just by giving money and donating money, but thinking of technology solutions. So this is really a big awareness thing. And also the goal is for us to bring new people into Pacific Art League. We're known for being a place where you can go to learn how to paint in oil or in acrylic or watercolor or to draw, but we also want to highlight our photography. And I think with 4 fantastic artists that we've included, we have Andy, who's won an Emmy. We have Oliver Klink, who's a local black and white photographer who travels to Africa a great deal. Oliver's just won Black and White Photographer of the Year. We also have Terry Vachelle, who's on our board. She's a local trained photographer, again, who travels to Africa. But lastly, I think probably for the first time to exhibit in Palo Alto, Sebastião Salgado. We've borrowed 3 absolutely stunning images from the Fetterman Gallery in Los Angeles. For Pacific Art League to have photography of that quality on display is a new for us. So we're very excited that we're going to bring a new audience and bring attention to a very significant issue.
And you're collaborating with Wild Aid?
We are. We're collaborating with Wild Aid. Wild Aid's an interesting organization. They, in a sense, are like a media company. They create public information films and place those in the markets where illicit products are being purchased. So their whole thing is when the buying stops, the killing can stop. So they're trying to suppress the market. They have 100% rating on Charity Navigator. They're a very very respected organisation with incredible ambassadors, Prince William, Leonardo DiCaprio. So it's a really interesting, prestigious organisation for Pacific Art League to be partnering with.
Is this the first time you've done a collaboration like
Yeah.
that? How did that happen?
Really through Andy and I having this passion to do something for Silicon Valley and draw attention. And Andy works with Wild Aid. He's their staff cinematographer.
So I know we had one of the photos we printed this week in the paper.
Yes,
it's a
thank you.
beautiful scene.
Yes.
The elephants and birds. But what is the exhibit also focuses on death and can you explain what?
It does, and I would say probably 10 to 15% of the images will be pretty tough.
Okay.
And we're creating a walling system so that when we're not having our big opening and a special event that we'll have in October, that we can cordon off those images that might really be offensive for kids, because we have a lot of kids coming to the building.
Yeah.
We have after-school programs now. So yes, there's a narrative which Andy has designed, which takes you through the beauty of the landscape and the animals, then addresses the challenge with some pretty graphic images. And then there is a sense of uplift because there are, hope. There's some element of hope. So we do try to end on a positive note. And that's in the two main galleries. But in the central gallery is purely beautiful, stunning black and white images by the three other photographers. So you can shield your eyes, but we try to mix the experience so that there's a clear narrative.
So I know this is the first time you've done something like this. Are you planning to do other exhibits similar to this that raise awareness?
Yes, we'd like to. On a yearly basis, we will be hosting a cause-based exhibit.
Okay. You're just hoping to get the conversation started about different causes and maybe
absolutely.
get some brains together.
Thinking about the power of art. How can art be an agent of change? And we see that as part of what we do at Pacific Art League. Not only a place to come and learn how to be a practitioner of art, but also to come and appreciate and understand art as well. And we'll be doing some classes in the fall around art appreciation and art history as well.
Okay. Now you joined the league about a year ago.
Yep.
And I know you wanted to kind of elevate the nonprofit's visibility in the community.
Yep.
So what are some other things that you've been doing over the past year that are new or different?
So our mission is to ensure that the entire community has access to good art, the opportunity to learn and really enjoy the creative process. So we've got an incredible range of classes. This is our full catalogue, of which is our largest selection of classes. So by quarter, we can have 45 to 50 different classes of all medium. So I think expanding our classes, expanding into after-school programs for kids, not only in the building, we have a new program, so schools can bring their kids to the building, but also helping kids in underprivileged communities have access to art education, because we really believe that the benefit of a creative education is so important. And sadly, the California school system has de-emphasized access to good art education. So part of our mission is to really, hopefully, open up art to kids who don't traditionally have access to good education.
You'd also talked about collaborating with other galleries.
Yes,
Can you
absolutely.
talk about that a little bit?
I think we've got a really nice opportunity at the moment in Palo Alto, because years ago there were many more galleries. We would have the art walk on first Fridays. You could get a glass of wine and walk between the galleries. Sadly, as the nature of what used to be a cool little university town has changed in the last 25, 30 years, some of those galleries have gone. But we now have 3 really, really interesting and different spaces downtown. Bryant Street, which has been there for so long and done such an amazing job of maintaining a really interesting aesthetic. There's Pace, which is just amazing. I think Sheryl and I were pretty impressed that we have a blue chip international gallery of the quality of paste downtown,
Absolutely.
which is just such a joy to have that here. And then Pacific Art League, which is principally an art school, but also a gallery space. So the uniqueness of our place is that you can come to a class, then you can submit a work that you've produced in your class, and depending on whether our juror selects it or not, you can have your piece in a show. So we are more of a community gallery. So you've got the blue chip gallery, you've got Bryant Street with a very distinct aesthetic, and then what we do. So the three of us are quite different. And then we also collaborate with the Art Centre. So we cross-promote what's happening at each other's shows during in our promotional pieces. So I'm quite optimistic that the 4 locations can work together more in the future, and maybe we can reinitiate the art walk, which would be great.
That'd be great. How many exhibits do you typically have every year?
Between 10 and 12 exhibits.
Okay.
We're pretty quick fire. We have, normally it's about one a month. So, our first Friday, everything's tied to First Friday, which is the tradition of Pacific Art League. We have 150 to 200 people coming to our openings. Please, everybody, come and join us, particularly on the 7th for the Africa show. So we see that as a big part of what we do, which is really bringing affordable art to the community. You can come into our space and buy original, affordable art.
So what are some other exhibits that you have planned coming up?
Well, we have 1 or 2 interesting photography shows coming up. In the fall, we have our big annual fundraiser, which we will be promoting information about that very soon after the Africa show. We have a Chinese art show in January, which is going to be focusing on 3 of our instructors. So we're hopefully in the future going to be having shows which reflect not just our faculty and our skills of our teachers, but also the community. So we will have a show specifically about Indian art, and we have our Chinese art. So we're looking at the different demographic segments and satisfying that demand.
Which is a great idea, and kind of what Cantor did with the recent Ink Worlds show, which is the private collection of Jerry Yang, Jerry Yang and his wife. And in all of my visits to that exhibition, there were families, Asian American families there, because the labels were in Chinese and Japanese as well as English. And I remember thinking, this is a demographic that wouldn't necessarily get here probably or be interested. But you could tell that these parents were really sharing with their children, look at this is our heritage, and here it is in a museum. And that's very significant. It's an important thing to do.
And we should reflect that. I mean, we all know that Palo Alto has changed dramatically in the last 20 to 30 years, and we should be reflecting that in the art that we have to offer. So it's a big part of what we're trying to do.
That's a great idea. And I was also thinking that when you were talking about how you were going to be carefully warning people about certain photographs in this upcoming exhibition, likewise, the Warhol exhibition has got big disclaimers saying certain of these photographs are not going to be appropriate for children's eyes. But all in all, it sounds like it's going to be a really fun fall for photography buffs, because you can go to the Cantor and see basically historic, now they're historic prints by Andy Warhol, and then go to the Palo Alto Art League.
I would imagine they're probably not as extreme as Mapplethorpe.
No. Well, we'll see. You never know.
I look forward to that.
Again, remind everyone when the opening is and where you're located.
We are at 668 Ramona, opposite the police station. So we never have any thefts, major art thefts, which is a help. And next Friday, September the 7th, from 5 o'clock onwards, we're hoping for a big crowd and a group of very influential Silicon Valley people joining us.
Great. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the Art League?
Just that we are a growing organization, the breadth of classes that we're expanding upon, the quality of the shows. So we will be looking to host other galleries in the future from outside of the area. So you can look to us to be innovating quite a bit and doing different things. But we will be celebrating our centenary in 3 years' time. So we are one of the oldest art leagues on the West Coast. And it's just a joy to keep something alive and vibrant in Palo Alto, which is a part of the old Palo Alto. And we've got a great team and very, very enjoyable seeing it thrive.
Well, thanks for joining us. That wraps it up for this week's Behind the Headlines. If you liked what you heard, press the button below or follow us on social media. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on in Palo Alto, go to paloaltoonline.com. Thanks.